sort of three situations come to mind. And this is, and of course, there's many variations and sort of nuances of this. But one is that you sort of have a very small company, small team, and the culture is pretty much top down because the founders, that casual culture, or eating at all the things that have a foosball table at the office, to that fun culture, is trickled down to all those early employees. So that small knit team has that same culture top down. And whereas you have like a really large organization, and the top down culture is different versus maybe the individual pods that might exist, and where you have sort of that us versus them. Whereas this one pod, working on this one aspect of the business might be really fun, and you go talk to a different department, they're all these like very serious sort of people. And then I've also seen another variation where the top down is sort of omnipresent, and the culture is all percolating from bottom up. So that's just some immediate sort of things that I've observed personally as well, and been part of and seen and experienced and seen sort of how that works. But in your experience, in the sort of the scale of IO or some of those companies that you've worked for, what are some of the tactful or daily things that they were doing, like from stand-ups to how were you sort of building that culture and those habits and encouraging those conversations even before the conflict could ever, even before getting to that point of conflict?
Yeah. So, there's what I've seen was that different teams can have, different cultures, and in those different cultures can each be healthy, right? Just as, you can have different teams having really dysfunctional cultures, but in different unique ways, you can also have good, healthy cultures and all of them being unique as well. It really depends upon a lot of times the personalities of the people in the teams involved, the size of the teams and what they're aiming for and stuff like that. So that's one thing. The main thing is healthy communication and regular communication amongst people within the team. And when you're a global team where maybe there's some people might be in North America, there might be some people in Europe, there might be some people in Asia, it may not be as practical to have, one daily stand-up video call every day because it timing wise may not work for people, but you might still want to find maybe once a week or twice a week, some place where people might, at least for a short amount of time, come together and talk about things, right? On top of this, regular updates asynchronously and regular sharing of efforts asynchronously, whether it's working collaboratively on a Google Docs, or whether it's pair programming, or whether it's collaborative design in Figma or whatever, doing things collaboratively instead of your own silo. That is something which regularly is good. There are always going to be disagreements. The main thing is how do you sort of talk through it, right? So doing a lot of, and it depends upon who is in the leadership of the team as well. Like as part of team leadership, if you take the effort to do a lot of planning and involve the team upfront, instead of saying, hey, this is what I've thought about and now we're going to do this. That once again, people don't like surprises, right? And people want to understand what their role is. So as long as they're bought in what the effort of the team is, what are the strategy and everything else, how do they fit in, it's usually a good way to go. When it comes to engineers, for example, the way in which you give feedback also matters. Like, for example, snarky comments on people's code reviews and that can over time like build up, so those are things you have to see that you're not building up resentment with people within your own team by giving feedback in the wrong way, right? So that is one of those things that you have to come up with, and sort of like engineering management needs to take a look, for example, and sort of like say, hey, if you want to give feedback on code reviews, for example, avoid these things, and look out for these things, stuff like that. Small things like these over time can matter. The way in which you're disagreeing, the way in which you're giving feedback, the way in which you're accepting feedback, all those things matter quite a lot when it comes to team health.
Right. And so sort of, is there like a specific example of how not to do it and how to do it in terms of giving reviews to an engineer? And then after that, I want to pick I want to get your point of view on, because you are now hiring sort of diverse teams, and they could be based anywhere in the world, and they're coming with their own sort of cultural background. And, culturally, as you and I are aware that, Europeans are very different from Indians, and North Americans are very different from Europeans and Indians. So there's like that aspect of it. And then how do you sort of bring that knowledge and factor in those things? Or how does that sort of play into not only giving feedback to maybe, let's say, something very tactful, like specific to an engineer, but like how does that sort of percolate across, this very diverse group of people?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it has to do a lot of times with making people aware of people's, general communication patterns and styles. I've had people who joined, from one part of the world, and when they were talking with people from another part of the world, usually German or Dutch, who are a little bit more frank, a little bit more to the point, and the way in which they were giving feedback to them was pretty standard, but to others it caught them by surprise that what the hell, they thought it was a very undiplomatic way of saying things, but so those are things where both people are just right in terms of they weren't doing anything which was uncalled for. They were just stating what was wrong or what needs to be improved. But sometimes you need extra padding, or sometimes you need to recognize that in some other cultures, the way in which people are giving feedback is a little bit more direct. So don't take it personally, and at the same time, you have to sort of like say that to the other person as well, that other cultures, you need to pad the way in which you're giving feedback a little bit, not too much. Don't bullshit people, but just to make it a little bit more diplomatic. That will over time make you a much better colleague. If you recognize the difference in communication patterns in different cultures. If you're working as part of a global team, this is to be expected, right?
Right. That actually makes a lot of sense, that you're sort of working both the angles. You're helping them learn more about the other side and vice versa. So that's and then is there any unique way or in your personal experience in giving critical feedback? Because I remember you talking about sometimes giving critical feedback is not the easiest, that you've had to give very critical feedback, and how you sort of dealt with it. And
one of the things that I, when I was talking to a few other people regarding feedback, one of them was, a psychologist and sort of like a coach as well. And they said something very interesting, which was, people cannot change their personality. They can change their behaviors, but people cannot change their personality. So avoid giving feedback on people's personality. You can give feedback on people's behavior, how they behaved in a situation. But you should not give feedback on, for example, you're a neurotic person, or you're generally like this. That's not helpful, and sometimes might be even hurtful. Right? But you can definitely say that in this situation, for example, this was this things that I observed. This is what it could cause as an effect for other people. And as a suggestion, I would suggest you do this the next time you encounter this situation. So I've had situations in the past where I did have to give critical feedback, but I made it about the behavior, not the personality. And that is something that I think, more people should do. And to make that distinction, whether this is something that they're giving feedback on, whether that's the behavior or whether that's the general personality of the person. And I agree with that as well. You cannot really change inherently who you are in terms of like your personality, but you can definitely adjust the way in which you react or behave in certain situations, or at least be cognizant of the fact that if you're saying something in a certain situation, this could cause other people to think so and so, right? So for example, there was this one time, actually more than one time, for different people, where uh, they mentioned something like, they wanted to refer to people like engineers on their team, and they said my engineers, like my engineers are going to do this, or my developers are going to do this. So I had to give them feedback saying, yeah, this might result in your the engineers on your team getting the wrong idea. I know what you're trying to say, but you can say it in another way, which is the engineers on my team, right? So that is.
So by the way, tell us a little bit more about, so how did you help that person sort of rephrase that statement to what did that new statement become then for that person?
It was just they just adjusted very quickly, and when I said that, their light bulb sort of like clicked, and then they're like, oh yeah, of course. And they were very very, they didn't question it or anything. They got it right, and they very quickly just, in the end, like from then point that point onwards, they just mentioned, oh, the engineers on my team are going to do this. So it's a collaborative effort. They're not anyone's developers. They're developers on the team. You're also on the team. So and they were very quick. They were very bright. So no complaints there. But these are sometimes blind spots that needs to be sort of like highlighted, because, well, it's your blind spot. You don't really recognize it, but once you get that feedback, you can adjust. You can quickly change.